Safe harbor. The lighthouse keeper's cottage on the northern California coast had become Maya's sanctuary over the past month. After Paris, she had disappeared completely from Oceanic, from Dominic, from the scientific community. Only Dr. Larson knew where to find her, and he had promised discretion. The documents he had shared revealed the truth. Elena had indeed orchestrated the campaign against Maya's research, but without Dominic's knowledge. In fact, she had manipulated evidence to make it appear Dominic was involved, knowing it would eventually drive a wedge between them if they ever crossed paths. What the documents couldn't explain was why Elena had targeted her so specifically, or why she seemed determined to sabotage her own brother. Maya sat on the cottage porch, watching waves crash against the rocks below. Her impromptu lab in the lighthouse keeper's shed had become a place of healing, where she continued her work on a much smaller scale. The sound of tires on gravel pulled her from her thoughts. Dominic's car looked out of place on the rugged coastal road. He stepped out, looking different than she remembered. His usual impeccable appearance replaced by casual clothes and several days' stubble. He stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, respecting her space. "Dr. Larson told you where to find me," Maya said. "Not a question. Only after I showed him this." Dominic held up a flash drive. "All the evidence against Elena and my resignation as CEO of Oceanic." Maya's eyes widened. "You resigned?" "The board is voting on it tomorrow. After what Elena did, what happened under my watch, it was the only honorable choice." He climbed one step, then stopped. "I've restructured the company. Your research program continues under independent oversight, with all credit and rights reverting to you." "Why are you here, Dominic?" He took a deep breath. "Elena targeted you because of me. Because 3 years ago, I attended a lecture you gave on symbiotic relationships in marine ecosystems. I mentioned to her afterward how brilliant I found your approach, both the science and the philosophy behind it." "I don't understand," Maya said, though a suspicion was forming. "My sister has spent her life trying to control me, my company, my relationships. When she realized I was tracking your research, interested in both your work and—" he hesitated. "In you personally, she set out to eliminate what she saw as a threat." "You were interested in me before we even met?" Maya stated flatly. Dominic nodded. "I followed your publications, attended conferences where you presented. I intended to approach you properly, professionally. Then everything fell apart. And when I found you at the harbor that day—" "You saw an opportunity," Maya finished for him. "I saw a second chance," he corrected gently. "But I handled it all wrong. The contract, the pretense. I thought I was protecting both of us from vulnerability, but I was really just afraid." Maya stood, descending the steps until they were face to face. "Afraid of what?" "Of feeling something real," Dominic admitted. "Of caring for someone who had every reason to hate me." The wind picked up around them, carrying the scent of salt and possibilities. "I don't hate you," Maya said quietly. "I'm not sure I ever really did." Dominic reached for her hand, hesitant in a way the confident CEO had never been. "The contract is void. The company is changing. There's nothing binding us anymore. Nothing except what's real," Maya finished, twining her fingers with his. "I can't promise I won't make mistakes," he warned. "I've spent too long seeing the world as assets and liabilities." Maya smiled, her first genuine smile in weeks. "And I can't promise I won't challenge every decision you make. I've spent too long fighting against the current. I wouldn't want it any other way." Dominic drew her closer, his forehead resting against hers. "Partners, then? In whatever sense you're comfortable with?" Instead of answering, Maya closed the remaining distance between them. Their kiss tasted of salt and new beginnings, of storms weathered and calm waters ahead. 6 months later, Maya's lighthouse laboratory had expanded into a coastal research center, jointly funded by the restructured Oceanic Foundation. The symbiotic approach she had pioneered was showing remarkable results across test sites worldwide, and the relationship that had begun as a business arrangement had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated, a partnership of equals, strengthened by the very differences that had once divided them. "Look," Dominic said one evening, as they walked along their private beach. He pointed to where the setting sun met the horizon. "You can't tell where one begins and the other ends," Maya smiled, understanding the metaphor. "That's the nature of true symbiosis. Separate entities, stronger together." As darkness fell, they returned to the lighthouse, its beams sweeping across the water, a constant guiding light for those navigating uncertain seas. Uncharted waters. 3 weeks into their arrangement, Maya found herself aboard Dominic's private yacht, sailing to a marine conservation conference in Monaco. The lab he had built for her was beyond anything she could have imagined. Cutting-edge equipment, a dedicated team, and already promising results. The public charade, however, was proving more complicated than expected. "Remember, you're supposedly captivated by me," Dominic murmured as they stood at the railing, watching the Mediterranean sunset. A photographer from an environmental journal discreetly captured them from the deck below. "Considering your company's history, I'm finding that particularly challenging today," Maya replied through a forced smile. The news of Oceanic's questionable fishing practices in protected waters had broken that morning. Dominic's hand tensed on the railing. "I've launched an internal investigation. If the allegations are true, I'll handle it." "Like you handled what happened to me?" The words escaped before she could stop them. Something like regret flickered across his features. "I told you, you didn't know." Convenient deniability. Maya turned to face him fully. "Do you actually care about the oceans, Dominic, or just the profit they can generate?" The question hung between them, heavier than the salt air. To her surprise, Dominic reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with unexpected gentleness. The gesture was clearly for the photographer's benefit, but something in his eyes made her breath catch. "Come with me," he said quietly, leading her below deck to his private office. Once inside, he locked the door and pulled up classified company files on his computer. "These are the original reports on your research from our acquisition team," he explained, stepping aside so she could read them. "Notice the dates. I was in recovery from a sailing accident when these recommendations were made. By the time I returned, the damage was done." Maya scanned the documents, seeing evidence of a systematic campaign against her, one that predated her refusal to sell. "Why show me this now?" Dominic leaned against his desk, suddenly looking tired. "Because I need you to understand that I'm not the monster you think I am. I've made mistakes, allowed my company to operate without proper oversight while I pursued my own interests. That ends now." For the first time, Maya saw beyond the polished facade to the man beneath. Complicated, flawed, but perhaps not the villain she had cast him as. "The conference tomorrow," he continued. "I'm announcing a complete restructuring of Oceanic's conservation division. I want you to lead it." Maya stared at him. "You can't be serious." "Completely. Your research would be just one aspect. You'd have authority over all our environmental initiatives, answerable only to me. Why would you give that much power to someone who clearly doesn't trust you?" Dominic's smile was wry. "Perhaps because your distrust is exactly what the position requires." Later that night, unable to sleep, Maya wandered to the yacht's upper deck. She found Dominic already there, gazing at the star-filled sky. "My father taught me to navigate by the stars," he said without turning. "Said a man who knows his position is never truly lost." Maya leaned against the railing beside him. "And do you know your position now?" Increasingly uncertain. His voice held a vulnerability she hadn't heard before. "Especially around you." The admission hung between them, neither acknowledging nor dismissing the shifting current beneath their manufactured relationship. When his hand covered hers on the railing, Maya didn't pull away. "The position," she said finally. "I'll consider it." Dominic turned to her, the moonlight softening his features. "That's more than I expected." "Don't get used to it," she warned. But her smile betrayed her. As they stood together under the vast Mediterranean sky, Maya realized that the boundaries of their arrangement were beginning to blur, like the indistinct line where the ocean meets the horizon. Part 4. Stormy Seas. Conservation Gala in Paris should have been a triumph. Maya's coral restoration program had shown unprecedented success, drawing international attention and funding. She had accepted the leadership position Dominic offered, implementing sweeping changes across Oceanic's environmental policies. Their public relationship, once a calculated performance, had developed an authenticity that surprised them both. Tonight, however, everything was falling apart. "Did you know?" Maya demanded, pulling Dominic into an empty corridor outside the ballroom. "Tell me you didn't know." "Know what?" Confusion crossed his features, genuine enough to momentarily shake her certainty. "Your sister is here." Maya's voice trembled with anger. "Elena Reeves, who apparently runs your Asia-Pacific division under her married name, Morrison." Dominic froze. "Elena is here? Don't pretend you didn't know she was the one who orchestrated the campaign against me." Maya thrust her tablet toward him, displaying emails she'd discovered while reviewing historical company documents. She was behind everything, the sabotage, the false accusations, all of it. And you've kept her in a position of power this entire time. Understanding dawned on Dominic's face, followed quickly by something darker. "I haven't spoken to Elena in 3 years. She operates her division autonomously, too autonomously, it seems. You expect me to believe the great Dominic Reeves had no idea what his own sister was doing?" Maya's laugh was bitter. "I trusted you. I defended you to my colleagues, to myself. I even started to—" She broke off, unwilling to finish the thought. Dominic stepped closer, his voice low and urgent. "Maya, I swear to you I didn't know. Elena and I had a falling out years ago over her methods. She must have done this to undermine me, knowing I'd been following your research." "Convenient explanation," Maya hissed. "Was any of this real? Or was I just another acquisition? Damaged goods you could pick up cheaply and use for your image rehabilitation?" Pain flashed across his face. "You know that's not true. What's between us became real long ago. Did it?" Maya stepped back, creating distance between them. "Or was I just foolish enough to forget this was all a business arrangement?" Before Dominic could respond, the elegant figure of Elena Reeves Morrison appeared at the end of the corridor, her smile coldly triumphant. "Oh, have I interrupted something?" she asked, her voice honey-sweet with malice. "Maya, darling, has my brother told you how he specifically targeted your research after I flagged it as a potential acquisition? How we discussed various strategies to obtain it at minimal cost?" Maya looked to Dominic, hoping desperately for denial. Instead, she saw shame. "It wasn't like that," he said quietly. "Not how you're making it sound. It never is with you." Elena's smile widened. "You always find a way to justify your actions while keeping your hands clean." Maya backed away from both of them, feeling physically ill. "I can't do this. Any of it." "Maya, please." Dominic reached for her, but she evaded his grasp. "The contract," she said, her voice hollow. "I want out. Keep the research. Keep everything. I just want out." She fled through the service entrance, ignoring Dominic's calls behind her. The rain that had threatened all evening finally broke, drenching her as she ran without direction through unfamiliar Parisian streets. Hours later, soaked and exhausted, Maya found herself on a bridge over the Seine. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from Dominic, all unanswered. Finally, it rang with a call from an unexpected number, Dr. Larson, her former mentor. "Maya." The old scientist's voice was grave when she answered. "I've just received some troubling documents about oceanic innovations. About what really happened to you. I think you need to see these before you make any decisions." As Maya listened, the full picture began to emerge, one more complex and heartbreaking than she had imagined. Shattered canvas. Maya Chen huddled deeper into her weathered jacket as the coastal wind whipped through the small opening of her car window. The sedan that had once been merely transportation had become her reluctant home over the past 3 months. She stretched her fingers, stiff from the cold, and continued jotting observations in her water-spotted notebook. Despite everything, the ocean still called to her. At 32, Maya had never imagined she'd be homeless. Just last year, she had been leading a promising research project on coral reef rehabilitation at Pacific Marine Institute, with a comfortable apartment overlooking the bay and a future as vast as the horizon. Then came the sabotage. Her research, innovative techniques using symbiotic algae to accelerate coral growth, had attracted attention from Oceanic Innovations. a powerful corporation known for acquiring or crushing anything that threatened their monopoly on marine technology. When she refused to sell her research, strange things began happening. Equipment failures, missing data, and eventually, accusations of falsified results. The Institute had dropped her immediately. No references, no severance, just a security escort and whispers that followed her to every interview since. "Not today," Maya whispered, focusing her attention on the tide pools glistening in the morning light. Even without institutional backing, she continued her work with makeshift equipment stored in her trunk. Science didn't stop because funding did. She slipped from her car, grabbing her sampling kit and camera. The harbor was quiet this early, just a few fishermen preparing their boats and the occasional jogger on the path above. Maya picked her way carefully across the rocks, finding comfort in the familiar rhythm of collection and documentation. Lost in her work, she didn't notice the tall figure watching from the boardwalk until his shadow fell across her samples. "You're trespassing on private property," a deep voice stated. Maya looked up, squinting against the sun. The man's silhouette was imposing, broad-shouldered and straight-backed in what appeared to be an expensive suit, out of place among the weathered docks and salt-sprayed pilings. "This is public access shoreline," she replied, continuing her work without bothering to stand. "I've checked the coastal access maps. The maps changed last month when I purchased the harbor." He stepped closer, and Maya could now see his face, sharp features, dark eyes that seemed to evaluate everything as assets or liabilities, and a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled. "I'm Dominic Reeves." The name hit her like a wave. Dominic Reeves, CEO of Oceanic Innovations, the very company that had destroyed her career. Maya stood, suddenly conscious of her worn clothes and unwashed hair. "I know exactly who you are." Something flickered in his expression, surprise, perhaps, at not being met with the usual deference. "And you are? Someone you've already taken enough from." She gathered her samples, hands trembling with anger. As she turned to leave, her notebook slipped from her pocket, falling open at his feet. Dominic picked it up before she could reach for it, his eyes scanning the pages of meticulous notes and hand-drawn diagrams. "You're Dr. Maya Chen," he said, recognition dawning. "The coral symbiosis researcher." Maya snatched the notebook back. "Former researcher thanks to your company." Instead of the dismissal she expected, Dominic studied her with new interest. "I'd like to see more of your work." "So you can steal the rest of it?" "No thanks." "So I can offer you a job." His words stopped her retreat. "I've been following your research since before the unfortunate events at Pacific Marine. I never approved those tactics." Maya laughed bitterly. "Right. The CEO had no idea what his company was doing." "Sometimes, Dr. Chen, things beneath the surface are more complex than they appear." He held out a business card. "Come to my office tomorrow. I have a proposition that might interest you." Maya stared at the card, torn between desperation and pride. Tomorrow she would run out of gas money. Her research needed resources she couldn't provide from a car. She took the card, her fingers brushing his. "This doesn't mean I trust you." Dominic's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but a crack in the corporate facade. "I wouldn't expect you to." "Not yet." Tides of fortune. The Oceanic Innovations headquarters rose from the coastline like a gleaming shell, all curved glass and polished steel. Maya felt painfully out of place as she entered the lobby, her second-hand clothes a stark contrast to the sleek minimalism surrounding her. "Dr. Chen," the receptionist greeted her with practiced warmth. "Mr. Reeves is expecting you." Maya was escorted to the top floor, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the same ocean she'd been studying from her car. Dominic stood with his back to the door, hands clasped behind him as he gazed outward. "The ocean looks different from up here, doesn't it?" he asked without turning. "Everything looks different when you're insulated from reality," Maya replied. Dominic turned, the ghost of amusement playing at his lips. "Directness, refreshing." He gestured to a chair. "Please sit." Maya remained standing. "You mentioned a proposition." "I did." Dominic moved to his desk, pressing a button that dimmed the windows and illuminated a holographic display. Images of dying coral reefs materialized between them. We're losing them faster than predicted. My company has poured millions into conventional solutions with minimal results. And now you want my research. Maya crossed her arms. The same research your people tried to sabotage. Dominic's expression hardened. Those actions were taken without my knowledge by individuals who have since been removed from the company. Convenient. Necessary. He approached the display, cycling through images until her own research data appeared. Your symbiotic approach could revolutionize reef restoration. I want to fund your work completely. A lab, staff, equipment, whatever you need. Maya narrowed her eyes. What's the catch? 2 conditions. First, you work exclusively with Oceanic for the next year. Second, he paused. You accompany me to a series of international marine conservation summits as my partner. Partner? Maya echoed incredulously. Publicly, you would appear as my romantic interest, he clarified, his tone businesslike. Privately, our relationship would be strictly professional. You want me to pretend to date you? Maya couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. Why? Dominic's jaw tightened. My board of directors believes I need to soften my image. They think a relationship would make me appear more human. And you picked a homeless scientist you've never met? I picked the most brilliant marine biologist whose career was unjustly ruined, he countered. Someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Someone with no connections to my social circles who might expose the arrangement. Maya laughed bitterly. So I get my research funded if I agree to be your trophy girlfriend at fancy parties? You get complete autonomy over a multi-million-dollar research program, Dominic corrected. The public appearances are secondary. She turned toward the windows, mind racing. The proposition was degrading, yet the opportunity to continue her work, to potentially save dying reefs worldwide, was undeniable. I'd need it in writing. Full creative control, publication rights, ethical oversight. Already prepared. Dominic slid a tablet toward her with a contract displayed. Review it with a lawyer if you wish. Maya skimmed the document, surprised by its generosity. The funding was twice what she'd had at the Institute, with guarantees she couldn't have dreamed of. 1 year, she said finally. No physical contact beyond what's necessary for appearance, and I maintain veto power over any public narrative about our relationship. Dominic extended his hand. Agreed. As their hands clasped, Maya felt the weight of the decision. She was making a deal with the devil, but perhaps this devil wasn't quite what she had assumed. When do I start? She asked. Immediately. I've prepared temporary accommodations in the building until you find something suitable. Dominic guided her to the door. And Dr. Chen? The first gala is Friday evening. I'll have appropriate attire delivered. Maya paused at the threshold. You were very confident I'd accept. For the first time, Dominic's smile reached his eyes. No, but I was hopeful. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Maya wondered if she had just rescued her career or made the biggest mistake of her life.